A brief history and background on the Italian Probation Services starts in 1975 with the Penitentiary Act of 1975. This act was a movement of reform conducted by members who are part of the criminal justice system. This was people like prison inmates, jurists, judges, and operators employed in the administration of justice. This movement sought to seek alternative forms of imprisonment, in return reducing the overcrowding issues that they were experiencing. In the end, this established the first Italian probation services for adults. More recently, on November 26, 2010, the law number 199, otherwise known as the Empty Jails Law, was established. This law further sought to reduce prison overcrowding by mandating that all sentences less than 12 months would be carried out on house arrest or in similar public or private programs. The main reason for all of these reforms and laws was due to the fact the Italian government lacked the resources and funds to accommodate the increase of inmates entering the system. They reverted to alternative measures such as probation to circumvent these issues. As a result of the laws to improve the overcrowding issues led Italy to their probation services. This service is part of the civil service, or better known as the Ministry of Justice. This service is completely independent from the prisons, but at the same time works closely alongside them. These probation programs are run by professionally qualified social workers who perform the institutional duties needed. This staff often seeks other professional assistance from experts in other fields like psychologists, psychiatrists, and teachers to aid the probation process. The general role of the probation services is to better and improve the links between the prisons and communities, but at the same time providing the assistance, structure, and supervision needed to continue one's sentence.
In Italy's parole and probation system, there are 4 main types of punishments: house arrest, probation, community service, and conditional release. House arrest may be granted to anyone sentenced to less than 2 years. Probation may be granted to anyone sentenced to less than 3 years. Conditional release may be awarded to prisoners who have served at least 30 months in prison or have reached the halfway point of a sentence lasting no longer than 5 years. On rare occasions, life sentence prisoners may be granted conditional release or day passes after serving at least 26 years of their term. While on probation, conditional release, or house arrest, you may be recalled to prison for many reasons. Most importantly, committing a similar crime as to the one that you've been convicted. But you must also comply with Article 230, which lays out requirements for probation, conditional release, and house arrestees. According to Article 230, you must keep regular contact with social services, enroll in a professional course, seek and maintain employment, follow a treatment program at one of the advised therapeutic community centers, compensate and show no ill will towards the victims of your crimes, stay away from certain people or places, abide by a set curfew, not be caught in possession with weapons, and stay within a particular city, town, or village. In the case of a recall, the offender will go before a surveillance tribunal. The tribunal will determine if the offender's actions are deserving of being recalled. In the case of those on probation, they will also get to determine if the offender's time on probation is counted towards their overall sentence. Those on house arrest, on the other hand, are considered incarcerated, and their time in house arrest must count as time served. In the event of a recall, the offender will be immediately returned to prison and possibly suffer restrictions before being eligible to apply for other forms of conditional release.
What wouldn't work in the United States is day passes for life sentence convictions. In Italy, life imprisonment has an indeterminate length. Therefore, after serving 20 years with good behavior, an individual may be granted day release, and after 26 years, may be granted conditional release. However, there is an exception. If the individual is convicted for mafia activity or a terrorism act, they will not be eligible for parole and will spend the rest of their life in prison. This will not work in the United States because individuals that are usually given life sentences do not belong back in society. If they knew they were going to be in prison for the rest of their life, they'll do everything in their power to get away and escape. This may not be the case for everyone, but day passes will not work in the United States.
On the other hand, one element of the Italian probation system that would work in the United States is the way their Ministry of Justice interacts with prison staff. Members of the Ministry of Justice work with staff members as social workers, and they perform institutional duties. Here in the U.S., we have a parole board that decides the fate of inmates. It would be beneficial to have psychologists and social workers evaluate the inmates based on their professional opinion opposed to their personal beliefs.
The probation systems in the United States and Italy are similar to a certain degree, but are very different in other aspects. For example, probation in the United States is administered by independent agencies. 24 states are run by country or a combination of state-country agencies. The other 26 are operated at state level, just as Italian probation is. Most U.S. probation services are organized in 5 administrative models: juvenile, country, state combined, and federal. The Italian probation service is organized in 3 models: national, regional, and local. The most common rules for probation in the United States are as follows: report to a probation officer as directed, comply with orders of the court, permission to change employment, residence, or travel out of the state, must notify a probation officer when arrested or questioned by police, not to control, possess, or receive any sort of firearm, they must obey laws and be arrest-free. They are allowed reasonable searches, not to associate with anyone with a criminal record, no drugs, or excessive alcohol use. The common rules for release from probation in Italy is to keep regular contact with social services, enroll in a professional course, seek and maintain an employment position, follow a treatment program at one of the advised therapeutic community centers, compensate or keep certain attitude toward the victim of the crime, refrain from attending certain places or people, refrain from performing certain activities, not to leave home at certain times of the night, and not to detain or use weapons and other objects, not to live in particular city, town, or villages. Both have their set rules and conditions in how probation is run, which are both similar but vary in their own sense.